over 2,000 years before cyberpunk hackers discovered the Matrix, and long before modern philosophers calculated the mathematical probability of a simulated universe, a single aristocratic Athenian codified the ultimate existential terror. It is the archaic suspicion that everything we see, touch, and feel is a fabricated illusion. Welcome to the subterranean gloom of Plato's cave. Picture an underground chamber, not a naturally occurring cavern, but a specialized prison of sensory deprivation and stagnation. The air here is thick, stale, and choked with the acrid, biting smoke of a massive, perpetual fire fueled by animal fat and pitch. Here, human beings have been immobilized since childhood. Their muscles are atrophied from a lifetime of disuse. Their necks are locked rigidly in place by heavy, cold, unforgiving bronze restraints. They cannot turn their heads. They can only look forward at the blank limestone wall in front of them. This is not merely an epistemological thought experiment detailed in Book 7 of the Republic, completed around 375 BCE. This is the very genesis of simulation theory. Plato was asking a question that still haunts the bleeding edge of quantum physics and modern technology today. What if our consensus reality is nothing more than a carefully curated lie? To the prisoners, the reality of their existence is absolute. They have no reason to doubt the walls of their enclosure because the enclosure is the only universe they have ever known. But behind them, unseen in the flickering firelight, the true mechanics of their world are operating in the shadows.
Who is maintaining this subterranean prison? Plato introduces a crucial, often overlooked faction in his allegory, the puppeteers. He uses the specific Greek word thaumapoioi, which translates to wonder makers or magicians. These were the ancient equivalents of special effects artists, traveling illusionists who manipulated perception for profit and power. In the cave, these wonder makers walk along a raised parapet, carrying statues of men, animals, and trees carved from stone or wood. As they pass before the roaring fire, these objects cast giant flickering shadows onto the wall facing the prisoners. The mechanics of this illusion are profoundly immersive. Plato explicitly notes the cave's unique acoustics. The echoes of the puppeteers' voices bounce off the jagged limestone, tricking the bound prisoners into believing that the shadows themselves are speaking. It is a proto-surround sound cinematic experience, a complete hijacking of the human sensorium. But why are they chained? Are they bound by a malevolent outside force? Or are the chains a metaphor for human biological limitations, cognitive dissonance, and our own willing addiction to spectacle? The thaumapoioi do not force the prisoners to watch. The prisoners are simply mesmerized. Today, these wonder makers are the algorithm designers, the media conglomerates, and the politicians who manipulate consensus reality. They project the shadows we consume. And just as the ancient prisoners debated and named the shadows, mistaking flat silhouettes for absolute truth, we too argue passionately over the curated, two-dimensional projections fed to us through glowing screens, entirely oblivious to the heavy bronze collars tightening around our necks.
What happens when the illusion shatters? Plato's allegory does not present awakening as a peaceful spiritual epiphany. It is a violent, agonizing ordeal. Imagine a prisoner suddenly freed from the bronze chains. The initial sensation is not joy, but excruciating physical pain. Muscles that have been dormant for decades scream in protest. The sudden intense glare of the fire burns eyes that have only ever known the comforting gloom of shadows. When this prisoner is forcefully dragged up the rugged, steep ascent out of the cave, what Plato calls the trachea kai anante, they are left gasping, disoriented, and bleeding. And then they are thrust into the blinding, unforgiving light of the sun, representing the good and absolute truth. This escaped prisoner is a literary construct representing Socrates, Plato's beloved teacher. The historical Socrates dedicated his life to breaking the chains of ignorance in Athens, constantly questioning the superficial shadows of political rhetoric and societal norms. And what was his reward? In 399 BCE, the Athenian public, the prisoners in the cave, voted to execute him. This profound trauma radicalizes Plato. It proves to him that the material and political world is a shadowy realm that despises and destroys truth-tellers. When the freed prisoner returns to the cave out of pity to liberate his friends, his eyes can no longer adjust to the darkness. He appears clumsy, foolish, and blind to the shadows. To the chained masses, his enlightenment looks like madness. They mock him, and ultimately, they kill him.
The traumatic execution of Socrates fueled Plato's deep mistrust of the masses and democratic consensus. His psychological motivation for the cave was partly to prove that majority rule is inherently flawed because the majority only ever sees shadows. He desperately sought immutable, eternal truths, the forms, to anchor a chaotic world. But the inspiration for this terrifying allegory was not entirely abstract. Modern historians suggest Plato was heavily influenced by a real physical location, the Cave of Vari, also known as the Cave of Pan, situated on the slopes of Mount Hymettus in Attica. As a young boy, Plato is recorded to have visited this subterranean shrine. It features a treacherous, steep descent, natural limestone formations that eerily resemble human figures, and a distinct, haunting shadow play when illuminated by firelight. The echoes within the Cave of Vari bounce unpredictably, creating the very acoustic hallucinations Plato later described. Yet breaking free from this literal and metaphorical darkness required a specific key. Before entering the allegory in the Republic, Plato lays out a severe regimen of mathematics and geometry. He issued a stark mathematical warning. Without numbers, without geometric logic, one could never break the chains of sensory illusion. His path to base reality was fundamentally mathematical. This ancient requirement is a striking, almost prophetic parallel to our modern understanding of computer code. To understand the underlying structure of a digital simulation, one must look past the graphical user interface, the shadows, and comprehend the raw, uncompromising mathematics running beneath it all.
Plato's allegory of the cave laid the foundation, but the architecture of simulation theory evolved over centuries. By 1641, the philosopher René Descartes advanced the concept in his Meditations on First Philosophy. Descartes introduced the evil demon, the genius malignus. This was the next evolutionary step, shifting the illusion away from a physical cave to an entirely psychological manipulation. Descartes wondered if an omnipotent, sinister entity was deceiving his senses, rendering the physical world, his own body, and the sky above as mere illusions. The physical chains had become neurological ones. Centuries later, the existential dread of the cave manifested in the modern era. In 1977, science fiction author Philip K. Dick delivered a now legendary speech at the Met Sci-Fi Convention in France. Sweating and intense, Dick proclaimed to a stunned audience, "We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs." Plagued by psychological turmoil, Dick believed he had experienced a localized simulation breakdown in 1974, a phenomenon he termed the Black Iron Prison. His intense paranoia perfectly mirrored the sheer, unadulterated horror of a Platonic prisoner realizing the bronze chains are real. Academics like Karl Popper had vehemently attacked the cave allegory in 1945, warning that it justified totalitarianism and elite control. Yet as the 20th century progressed, the fear shifted from political dictators to technological overlords, setting the stage for the ultimate realization of Plato's dark vision.
As we hurtled into the digital age, the cave morphed once again. In 1981, Jean Baudrillard published Simulacra and Simulation, arguing that postmodern society had replaced all reality with symbols and signs, effectively making the shadows our only truth. This philosophy famously birthed the 1999 cinematic masterpiece, The Matrix, which adapted Plato's cave through a stylized cyberpunk aesthetic. The green falling code of the Matrix is the mathematical reality Plato demanded, while the simulated 1999 world is the shadow on the limestone wall. By 2003, philosopher Nick Bostrom formalized this ancient dread with his simulation hypothesis, utilizing rigorous probability theory to argue that our reality is overwhelmingly likely to be a post-human computer simulation. Today, one only needs to look at a dark, crowded subway train, illuminated entirely by the cold blue light of smartphones. Passengers sit immobilized, staring blankly downward, their necks bent in a modern echo of Plato's heavy bronze restraints. They are captivated by digital algorithms designed by modern wonder makers, reacting emotionally to pixels that have no physical substance. The cave of Plato has become a global, interconnected digital prison. Academic classicists may argue against retrofitting modern simulation theory onto Plato's epistemological framework, but whether the chains are made of ancient bronze or silicon microchips, the archaic suspicion remains. We are still prisoners, utterly fascinated by the dancing shadows of our own making, waiting for the painful, blinding light of truth to finally drag us out into the real world.